Welcome to Real Wisdom, where we dive into the real stories of remarkable women. Today, I'm excited to introduce you to Laurie Notaro. Laurie is a New York Times bestselling author who's known for her hilarious and honest view on life, love, and the craziness of getting older. Her path from journalist to beloved humor writer, and now a completely different project, is an incredible example of how to reinvent yourself in midlife. But Laurie's story isn't just about career success. It's about finding the courage to be completely yourself, even when life gets tough. In her book, Excuse Me While I Disappear, Laurie takes us on a wild and funny trip through the ups and downs of midlife, from hot flashes to midlife meltdowns. And that's what I love about Laurie's perspective. She reminds us that midlife doesn't have to be a crisis. It could be a time of incredible growth, self discovery, and yes, even laughter. Because let's be real, if we can't laugh at ourselves and the craziness of aging, what's the point? So if you're ready to see midlife in a whole new light, buckle up. This is going to be a wild and wonderful ride. And hey, if you want more wisdom and laughter in your life, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Let's jump in. Hi, Laurie. I wanted to welcome you here today. I'm so excited for this conversation. I've been researching a little bit about you, and you've had a wild ride. Everything from a journalist to a columnist. You were a best-selling author in your 30s. And recently, in your 50s, you wrote a true crime fiction novel.
Yeah.
How do you find the energy to keep plowing forward and doing different things when I feel so many of us are buying our readers in bulk and Googling how to manage joint pain?
Okay, so yes, that is I have reached I just turned 59. I am at the right now you can't see it. I'll let you see it. I just had these lasered off my face.
Ouch.
Yeah, as a birthday gift. My mom paid for it. Sunspots from Arizona. It really, really, really hurt. If you ever get a tattoo, make sure you really want that tattoo because you do not want that, like in a
No.
big area. It was like a barbecue on my face. It was terrible. You can smell it. I was like, all I need is a bun and like some relish, and I'm ready for lunch. Like, I didn't know what to expect. And now my face is all swollen. It looks like I got in like a Trader Joe's parking lot fight. But okay, so back to your question. How do I find the time to keep going? I am a busybody, and I have gone back to. We can talk about this in a little bit if you want to, but I have gone back to full time work. So I work full time. I have a steady, real life, serious job for a serious place. But on weekends, mornings, nights, I write my books.
Okay.
So my books are when I first started writing the columns, I mean, this is back in like 1989. I was the editor of the State Press magazine, which was at Arizona State University. And I started writing the columns then, the humor pieces, and then they just caught on. I can't explain it, and I really don't know why. But that wasn't the point of me going to journalism school. I went there to become an investigative reporter. I wanted to do stuff like that. I've covered murders and child murders even, and, really hard-hitting stuff like homeless children and at that time even crack babies. Like that's the kind of stuff that I really wanted to cover. But those humor pieces had a life of their own, and they gave me an avenue to actually kind of make a living doing something that I loved, which was writing humor for people and making people happy. And I also made a lot of people mad because humor is so subjective. You just never know who's going to find something funny and who's not. And so it's like there just needs to be a warning, unlike all of my books. Like, please just take a Valium or just start drinking wine when you're drinking this book. None of it is about you, right? None of it is pointed toward you. These are general observations of the world through my very skewed perspective. So even yesterday, I had to tell somebody, just chill out. This is just a joke, It's only a joke. But I was able to continue with writing those nonfiction humor-based books for quite a long time. And then one day Random House said, well, we want you to write a novel. And I was like, I can't write a novel. I'm not that kind of writer. And my editor said to me, he's just like, Laurie, he's like, it's just one big humor piece. That's all it is. One big humor piece. And I was like, once I thought about it that way and I didn't have to eat the cake in one bite, it's like, yeah, I think I could pull that off. So I think I wrote 2 humor novels, switching back and forth between the first person stuff and then the humor novels, which are really goofy. They're only meant for a very jaunty, comedic ride. There's no like cement or message in them. It's just a slice of funny cake. You know what I mean? That's
Yes,
all it
yes.
was. And then I mean, but on the side, I was always still doing reporting. I was always still doing reporting on the side for this magazine or that magazine or this newspaper, because that's really what my first love was. And I missed doing that. I missed interviewing people and finding the story behind the story.
Was it hard to navigate between the two?
No, I just work constantly. I just,
Okay.
no, no. If you're a writer, my friend Robert says this too. If you're a writer, if you're a good writer, you should be able to write anything. And I've written crazy stuff. Like I've written like gun safety manuals and stuff for financial institutions, right? I've written some really crazy things in order to pay the mortgage. I've even written, they're no longer there, I checked, but in 2002, I wrote all of the Amazon reviews for the OXO products.
Yes,
There are
yes.
400 of them.
Oh,
400 of them. And up until last year, they were still up with my name on it. It's hilarious. And now they've come off because when Amazon first started, it was like that little description that you have of the product. And I would say why it was good, if it was arthritis friendly, all that. And that's how I paid for my air conditioning unit in Phoenix. So, okay. So that's the kind of stuff you have to do when you're a writer. You take any job that you get. So you have to be flexible. You have to be able to jump in from one perspective to another and different types of voices and things like that. So that's just expected. And I'm guessing it was probably about 2013 when I heard a story I honestly went to go watch Real Housewives of New Jersey, but I had TiVo. Like I was the last surviving person to ever have TiVo.
oh my
And
gosh, I
TiVo,
haven't heard that in forever.
so it was a really old model, so it wouldn't always tape what I wanted it to tape. And so instead of Real Housewives of New Jersey, I got this crazy BBC documentary about these women in Britain who were these pioneering aviatrixes in 1926, 1927, who made the transatlantic attempt prior to Amelia Earhart. And I was like, how could that be? How could I never have heard of these women? And I thought it was just, a documentary being sensational. But it bugged me. So I took notes on that program. I got off my elliptical, which is still sitting next to me, which is completely useless. I hate it. Anybody wants it, come get it. It's free. I just got to take it apart. So I did some research and I was like, whoa, it's not only those women, but I found several American women as well. That were very, very famous in 1927 after Charles Lindbergh made his flight. Like it was just the country caught like airplane fever. So I started doing research on them and their stories were so remarkable and so lost to history. And I really wanted to bring them back. And so I spent 5 years researching that book. And the more the internet developed, because even in 2013, I couldn't find very much stuff, but the more that the internet developed, and then I went to different libraries, I was able to really put together a very factual story of their bravery and their heroism and their skill and how Amelia Earhart got to be as famous as she was simply a matter of timing. She was not the best pilot. She was a terrible pilot. She's dead. They're all dead. But she was actually a very, very bad pilot. And the trip she made over in the Friendship, she did not even touch the controls of that plane. She woke up and she was famous for being the first woman to cross the Atlantic. She did not pilot it. She did that. She did pilot several years later, but there were actually women who did pilot over the Atlantic. Didn't make it all the way, but they did it way before she did. So I really wanted to write that book, and I pitched it to my editor at Simon and Schuster, and she was like, "Let's go." So that book came out. I think it's a pretty strong book. I loved writing it. It took me a long time. And so that was my first taste of going into like a nonfiction novel because I am a reporter. I don't want to make stuff up. And that's the reason why I don't really watch stuff like Bridgerton or, Victoria. If I'm going to, or even The Crown, if I want to watch something, I want to be able to learn from it too and learn the correct things.
Yes, and
Not,
not somebody's vision of what
yeah,
happened. Yeah.
yeah. So it's always been very, very important to me to stick very, very closely to the facts. And then my career in publishing completely imploded. Um, it was the publishing industry fell out like in the fall of 2016 for a lot of political reasons. No one really expected it. And I went back to work and I swore off the publishing industry for about 5 years until one day I was just like, I have enough. I have enough material for another book.
You had
And
the
that,
itch.
and that was Excuse Me While I Disappear. And in that time, I had met some people who were starting Little A, which was the publishing house at Amazon. I'd had not very good experiences with Random House or Simon and Schuster, and I really did not want to go back to a traditional Big Four publishing house. You kind of get lost. They promise things that they may not deliver. It's very, very hard to get paid. That's what they don't tell you. I didn't get paid once for 3 years.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
a problem.
Simon Schuster didn't care. I cared, but that's a problem. Yeah, I was living on credit cards. So that's why I went back to work. And then Excuse Me came up and I contacted the people, the publisher of Little A, and I said, you know what, I think I have a project I want to talk about with you. And she's like, oh my God, I was just going to email you. I have a project that I want to talk about with you. And so we met and it was the same project and it was that book.
Oh,
And it was
perfect.
about getting, gradually going into middle age and being like, what is going on here? No one told me about any of this stuff. And it's just like, why does my belly flop over now? And why is my skin is so thin? And my, what's this thing under here? And
Nobody tells you that.
no,
Nobody.
no. And so that was why I wanted to write kind of a primer for people who were approaching that age or even in that age saying, you are not alone. Your mom didn't tell you, your aunts didn't tell you, but I'm going to tell you. This is what I'm going through. What about you?
Yes.
That kind of thing.
Well, I have I'm copying it here, and I'm looking. I put all these funny tabs in here because I'm like, oh, I gotta ask about this and this and this. But really, I think the key here is how can we all approach, midlife and the different things that go on, even though like life is throwing us a bunch of curveballs. How can we approach it with humor? Because man, it's rough sometimes.
No, it is. And what my best friend Amy always says, misery makes memories. And she's right.
Mm.
Like the worse something is, the funnier it is. Like there was in that book, I went to Atlantic City and a lady died for a reading. A lady died in my audience. Like
Oh man.
in the middle of my reading.
No.
And once the paramedics left, they're just like, you got to get back up there. And I was like, what? What? And I did it. And I never got back to it. But I was just like, oh my God, that was a horrible experience. But someday it's going to ripen into a really, really great piece.
How could you not use that? I mean,
Yeah, it's just I think you just have to have the way to deal with life's indiscretions and unfairnesses, and of which there are many, and they are never ending, is you're like what Wonder Woman, like constantly battling off the meteorites of humiliation, right? The older you get. But you got to you have to turn it into, because it's absurd. You have to turn it into a level of absurdity where it resonates on a collective level. It has to be very, very relatable. And it turns out like and I hope that I am the only one who ever has a lady in the audience die as a result of my reading. But most of the things in that book have happened to other people. And so therefore, when you can relate to it and you can take that truth and twist it a little bit into the absurd and make it relatable, then you have humor.
well, one of my favorite parts, or one of the stories that you told, was about shoplifting a bag of potatoes. And I thought that was so funny because I'm picturing how that could happen. What did that teach you about what people, pictured aging is when you're leaving the store and you get to your car and nobody said a word to you?
Yeah, nobody. And I mean, I didn't see the potatoes until I actually got to the car. And I actually did have a choice. Do I want to go back there and pay for the potatoes? Or am I just going to throw them in the back of the car because Safeway tries to cheat you every single time on digital coupons? Check your receipts. You have to know that. And still, the house always wins. So I just figured I was kind of owed those potatoes because the week previously they had sold me $10 of really rotten peaches. So fair is fair, right? What that told me was that I was no longer a threat to society. I was no longer a suspect. I was no longer almost like functioning. I had become a hapless old woman in that stereotype that we all have of old ladies. Oh, she's just old. She's a nice old lady. Well, sometimes nice old ladies were nasty young women. You know what I mean? They're at all. It's not like you pass like a nice barrier. You're still the same person. But I think all nice old ladies are just like they have this like mask and they know. Like you think that I'm a nice old lady. But I could really mess you up if I wanted to. I really
You have
could.
no idea who I
You
was
have no
before.
idea. I could cut you to the quick. I have so many more days on this earth and so much more experience. And you're wearing a stupid outfit. And right now, I really should tell you that, but I'm just going to let you wear that outfit.
Because someone shouldn't have let you walk out of the house with that on.
You shouldn't have walked out the house like that. I saw a girl yesterday. It is 43 degrees here. Cutoffs, tank top, coming back in flip flops and coffee, 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, that's a stupid outfit. And it was a tank top, like crop shirt. It was a crazy, crazy thing. And I was like, how did that even happen? What else is going on in your life that is really how you walked out of the house at 8 o'clock in the morning? It's crazy.
Right, but once you walked out of the door room, you're like, oh, it's a little
cold.
chilly out here.
I'm cold.
I'm cold.
Doesn't take long, like 2 seconds. I'm cold. I should go put on a hoodie or something. Nope, didn't do it. Go walking. She was walking back with coffee. Yeah. So, but old ladies know that, and they look at you, and you're just like, you're gonna pay for that later on.
That's very funny. There's another thing too that you mentioned in the book, and you talked about feeling invisible. And a couple of weeks ago, before I read your book, I had recorded a video about feeling invisible in your 50s, and I thought I was, I was really honest with myself, and I showed it to my husband, and he was like, "Oh no." Like way too honest. He's like, that is the saddest story I've ever heard. So I've done it since then. I've done it again. I thought I did a better job. But I like your take on invisibility because you embrace that message and say, it's okay for us to feel invisible right now, that we shouldn't really fear it because it's almost like a superpower.
Go get those free potatoes. What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? You have reached this point in your life. I would have lost my own bet that I had reached this age that I am now. I mean, I didn't have kids. I got married late. I had a good time. I'll say that. And I'm glad I had a good time. But that girl still lives within me. And she is smart enough to know that now that I have this disguise on me, like 27-year-old Laurie's still here. She's still here. She's got gray hair now. But now no one is going to arrest 59-year-old Laurie for making a fuss at the bank. Like no one's going to do that, right? They're going to be like, she's a harmless old woman. Maybe she stole some potatoes. No one's going to cuff me in the Safeway parking lot. No one's going to do that. Oh my God, my memory. I just didn't even, I'm not wearing my glasses, right? I didn't even see that. I'm so sorry. Do I know your mom? I think I know your mom. You can get away with so much stuff. And it's like being Wonder Woman. And I don't think enough people understand that and appreciate that. Not that you have to do bad things, but that your freedom has expanded because no one's paying attention to you. And that is a good thing. That is a good thing. If you wanted to go and TP someone's house, I'm not saying you should do that. I don't even think kids do that anymore. TP is too expensive.
They do. They do.
Do they?
Yes. They do.
But just like I get away with so much stuff now and people are no longer wanting to fight me because they think that they'll kill me. And that's good. So like over a parking spot at Trader Joe's, like, and I am that person. Trader Joe's just sets me off. And I was there last week, and there were two women even older than I am, standing in the middle of the aisle for a very long time, just checking their list. And I had just had it. And I said, you know what? You're going to have to take this someplace else. I got to get down this aisle. And I really said that. Like, you got to move it along. I don't have time for this. I just don't.
Do you chat up the cashiers because they really love to talk when you're checking out?
Not, it depends if they're asking me why I'm buying something weird or whatever. Or sometimes I'll just say, I do like to mess with people. I totally do. I mean, that's
Really?
just, and
I wouldn't see that as part of your personality.
you're being nice or you're lying or you're lying. Yeah, I do. I really do love to push people as far as I can get. And I can push them farther now because people think that I'm serious. And because I am older and older people don't joke about things like that. But I'm like, no, I totally mess with people. Like there is a piece in that book about the NextDoor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I pushed that as far as I can until someone threatened to bring out machine guns. And I was like, okay, threat over. Threat over. It's great for me. And that is a great platform to really mess with people because everyone's so serious.
Oh, yes. I got, last year I got bug shamed on there because in the fall, we had this weird bug. It was called an elder bug. And I thought I would go on there because maybe other people in the neighborhood had the problem. And I wanted to know how to eliminate them. You would have thought I was,
You had
taking
killed a
out-
bunch of bees.
Yes. Or roasting bunnies or something. Oh my God, it was so terrible. But so yes, I completely get what you're saying about it.
So
It was the last
Those
time I was
people
on there.
they deserve to be messed with.
Yes.
They deserve to be messed with. I'm giving them back their own medicine.
But they don't realize it at the time.
They don't
Which
realize
is like
it.
you were in it.
Oh my God. No, it's great. That thing ran for like, I think 144 different posts on that thread until the guy threatened to shoot me. So yeah, so it went on for quite a while.
Well, that escalated really quickly.
It was great. In fact, that wasn't even, I didn't do that to put that in the book. I just did it because I had just had it. I just had it with people complaining about stupid things. Like, seriously, if the smell of a dryer sheet is the worst thing that could happen to you that day, I got to set you right.
Oh, there was one thread during the wintertime because we had a beautiful fresh snow. And a man was complaining about the dogs peeing in the snow in front of his house because it was really ruining the aesthetic of that white blanket of snow.
My whole thing was, in fact, I said the other day to myself, I was like, to a person who was just doing some stupid maneuver driving, I can't help you figure out the world. I can't help you figure out the world. I may flip you off, and maybe that will give you a hint about the way the world works from an old lady, because no one expects that. No one expects me to flip them off in traffic. I do it.
No, nobody would expect that from you. You're driving past, they're thinking, oh, she just looks like such a nice person driving in her car.
Oh, I don't look like a nice person, but I look like I'm crazy Aunt Laurie, right? But I look like someone who would not do that simply because I'm older and I'm not in my 20s and I've let my hair go a natural color. And I'm driving a Prius, a beat up old Prius. No one expects that.
No. Can I just ask for anybody watching, what was it that you posted that got everybody so riled up?
Oh, well, it was in response to that really stupid post about a lady walking through our neighborhood. Is that I was having such a lovely day until I was accosted by the smell of a snuggled dryer sheet, which is cancer causing, pollutes the atmosphere. And I was like, oh my God, really? So what I posted was, help. People keep walking by the front of my house and it makes my dog bark. And that set off a chain of events that was pretty epic. Just that one thing. And it was basically, I wish I had thought of the pee in the snow. That I might do that again. I
Yes.
might do that again.
You're
this
welcome.
Next winter.
You could use
I'm
that
not
one.
they kicked me off nextdoor.com, but I'm back on now. I get booted from everything. I'm not allowed back on Yelp either.
How do they
Yeah.
boot you from that? Do
They
you
asked
get
me-
it?
Yeah, I got expunged. I
Uh-huh.
got expunged for fighting with people. But I'm back on now. Yelp, I'm not back on. They won't let me back on, and that's fine.
That's right.
But I usually get booted off a lot of social platforms.
That's pretty awesome. You're a hero.
You don't want to be me. My poor husband. He's just like, oh, I'm going to get shot one day, taking a bullet for you. So,
Well, this is kind of changing it up a little bit, but because in your latest book, and maybe it's because we're talking about violence and I'm thinking of it, the murderess, am I saying it correctly? But it's about, a woman who murders her two friends.
yeah.
And it seems like such a jump from what you were doing before. But like, what interested you in Winnie Ruth Judge?
It happened in Phoenix, and actually, when the first house that I bought was literally like 2 streets away from the murder house. So I had grown up with the legend of Winnie Ruth Judd. We all knew it, but it was presented to us as she was kind of the patron saint of injustice. She didn't get a fair trial. She may have had accomplices. She said she did in self-defense. And that was the story that we were all told. And I was just like, and I wanted to believe that. But I also wanted to not read a nonfiction book about the crime. Like, I really wanted to know what was going inside of her head. And when I started doing research on that, which was right after I finished Crossing, which was in 2014, there wasn't a whole lot. I mean, there were some oral histories. There were things down at the Arizona State Museum or Arizona State Archives that I found in the library, typical things like that. But then my friend Robert Pala, who I've referenced before in this conversation, was very good friends with Sunny Worrell, who was one of the victim's great nieces.
Oh.
And Sunny Worrell was a research librarian. She worked for the National Library of Health. She knew what she was doing, and she could find anything. And she devoted her entire adult life to amassing the largest archive and collection of ephemera, documentation, evidence, oral histories, letters, photographs about this crime that is in existence. It tops anything that the Arizona Archives has. And Sunny, unfortunately, I never got to meet her. She died in 2014. Her mother bequeathed the archive to Robert, who was also a journalist and had done some reporting on this case. He had just found a confession letter that had been buried for almost 80 years, in which it said it was not self-defense, that the story was so not what we had been told. And so I looked at the archive and looked at my stuff, and I was like, at first I went to the archive to see if it really was self-defense, and within 5 minutes I knew that it wasn't. It was just the evidence and the autopsy reports totally told a different story. And I really wanted to believe her to be innocent. She was so well-spoken and by all accounts, a very nice woman. How does something so bad happen to someone who's supposedly so good? And that is irresistible to me. I really wanted to know the story behind the story. And I know how to dig and I know how to report. And so I was like, I was just going to do one big story. And honestly, when I passed it around the first time, it was right after Crossing had been published and no one would take it because my publishing on the last book had been so bad. Okay. The sales had been so bad. But once I got the deal with Amazon, again, with the thought of this book in the back of my head, after we did Excuse Me, so I pitched this book and I was like, I'm the only one who has this stuff. And the story is extraordinary. And once I got into it even deeper, it was not only extraordinary, but it is tragic and sad and almost beyond belief, what happened to Ruth and her friends. And I really went off on the weeds there, Holly. I'm really sorry. I'm
that's okay.
way over here.
I'm so excited to start reading it because I'm really a huge fan of, true crime, especially sort of way back in history. Could you imagine what it was like for a woman in, what was it, in the late 20s?
1931. It's
yes.
Not in the middle of the Depression, but in one of the hardest years of the Depression, where women were not being paid what men were, if they could even get a job. And these women were struggling to get by, and they had to do what they had to do in order to live. So again, this is a true crime novel. It is fiction in the sense that there were some conversations she had alluded to in some of her letters and her diaries and her oral histories that I know that they happened. I don't know exactly what was said but I was able to hopefully piece those things together to make it as accurate as possible. So a lot of people are calling this, like historical fiction. It is not. It is not historical fiction. I stuck as closely to the facts of my timeline, of Sunny's timeline. Sunny's timeline, I don't have. Oh, wait, I do have the book over here. I do have the book over here. This is Sunny's timeline.
Oh,
Sunny was a research librarian, and I can show you she has footnoted everything.
oh,
Every
wow.
single thing she says in here, and this timeline is footnoted. So I can go right back to my archives, find that piece of evidence, and line it up to what she says in the book. She was meticulous. So I trusted her reporting because I really do think it was reporting. And it was good because if I had actually sold this book in 2016, it would have been a book about the crime, but it wouldn't have been this book. And this book is much weightier, much more heftier, and much more complete as far as the complications that went down with this and the crime that happened. It was heinous, awful, treacherous, disgusting, and nobody won. It's just
Yeah.
a really sad story. But I believe it's the closest thing that we have to the truth right now. But like I said, it took almost 80 years for that confession letter to bubble to the surface of the Arizona State Archives because it had just been in a box that no one had noticed for 40 years. Who knows what's going to happen in the next 20, 30, 40 years that surfaces that may shed more light on this case and tell us who cut up the bodies. I have an idea. I think my idea is pretty right, but I can't prove it.
It has to be, having lived so close to where this was committed, that had to have added a little bit to
Oh,
your.
absolutely. And the place where the girls worked was literally down the street. I could see it from my house. It's still standing. It's a beautiful building. It was built in 1931. They were the first ones who worked there. Ruth was a medical secretary, and one of her friends was an X-ray technician, Anne Leroy, which is very, very untypical in 1931 for a woman to be an X-ray tech. I mean, seriously. And she was all up to date on the latest technology. Very, very unusual. And her partner was Sammy Samuelson. Anne's partner was Sammy Samuelson. And I do believe that they were a couple.
I can't wait to start reading it. I think that that's going to be my weekend. I was engrossed in excuse me while I disappeared. But now that I'm back, I've got something else to read. You said before something about you're not the nice grandma, you're the crazy aunt.
Yeah.
And I think in this moment, we could all use a crazy aunt to kind of help us stir some things up and encourage a little bit of a rebellious spirit. Is there anything you think that women can gain right now by just being a little bit more outspoken and rebellious?
I will tell you a story. In 2016, when Hillary Clinton lost the election, I am a feminist. I really, really, really believe in women's rights. I've fought for it since I was 18 years old. You have to remember, I grew up in the 80s and I entered the workforce in the 80s and in the 90s. And I experienced misogyny and sexual harassment because everyone did. It wasn't just me. Any girl who went to a pizza parlor and worked there got her butt slapped, either by the owner or a customer. It was just commonplace. So I really felt that I had to do something significant. Number one, to get my mind off the fact that the Crossing the Horizon had failed. I felt like I really needed to do something big. And so I started a national organization for women now, which has been in existence since 1965 in Eugene, Oregon. And I was the president, and I did that for a year. And it was exhausting. It was really, really hard. It is hard to manage all those emotions at once. But what I said then and what I say now is you cannot be complacent. We're back where we were 8 years ago. I'm not interested in repeating those 4 years. I am not. I think that this is our time it could be another golden age of activism. Who knows? But I think that people do need to understand that there is a time and place to say something. And unfortunately, we're there again. I'm not going to restart the chapter of now. It was exhausting, and having a job, there's no way that I could do that. But there are organizations of people who can get together and support one another through difficult times. And no matter, if you're a feminist and you voted for Trump, you can still come in and talk to women who are have feminist values. And like then, like now, it's a time for women to band together. We've taken some really big hits over the last year. Big hits that I was afraid would happen. I'd never wanted to see happen, but I had a feeling they were going to happen, and they did. And again, I'm old. I'm not going to be on this earth for very much longer, but I have nieces and I have nephews, and I want them to have the same freedoms that I had growing up and the same opportunities, and I don't want to turn back the clock. So I would say take a breather right now. Open a book, start reading just for this initial time period. Get a hobby. If you don't have a hobby, get a paint by numbers. You can do Van Gogh paint by numbers now. You totally can do that. Pick your favorite painting, spend 8 hours doing it, right? I sent several out to my friends just yesterday. I started doing that.
I did paint by numbers during COVID.
Yeah, yes. Do Starry Night. Do sunflowers. Do something that at least can take your mind off it, and that you have a beautiful project at the end. Or read a book, or just dive into Netflix without shame. Right now, we need to take a step back and just kind of chill for a bit. And then when you're ready, you jump in the game and see where you can be best used.
I love how you said that. I was going to ask for one more piece of advice, and that was for, women who, like you said, you're older now. We're not in their 20s and 30s, and in midlife, you could sometimes feel a little stuck. You can get yourself in a rut, right? And, if there's one piece of advice that you would give for us ladies here, what would that be? And you could be as snarky as you want. Like, we're ready for it, because I think, honesty helps sometimes.
Here's the thing is that I've met people who are just like, I'm going to go to India and find myself. I'm going to go to Marrakesh and see what my experiences are and find out who I really am. I'm like, you're sitting right in you. You're sitting in you. You don't need to go to India to find out who the hell you are. Look at yourself. Look at yourself. What it is that you are feeling like you haven't accomplished something very important that you wanted to accomplish. So figure out what that is and figure out how to get there. Take the first step, the second step. If you want to go back and get your degree, look at community college catalog, right? Mm-hmm. If you want to write a book, sit down at a typewriter and start doing it. Now is the time that you really do need to, I hesitate to use the word pamper yourself, but put the attention on yourself. And don't give yourself any excuses. I'm very, very lucky that the goal that I set out for myself when I was 19 years old, I reached it. So therefore, I did it, right? But I didn't do it at once. I didn't do it until I was 35 years old. I didn't get there. It took a really long time of working every day and following my path and being rejected again and again and again. But you can't let anything stop you. If you want it bad enough, you have to jump over hurdles. You have to crawl through minefields, but you cannot stop. Otherwise, you end up being right back where you were. You have to give it a shot. So if you're stuck doing something, it's because if you're stuck in a rut, there's something that you want to do and you haven't done it yet. And figure out what that is and chase it. Just chase it. Just go and get it. Much like in 2016, I had to put my Ruth Judd book away, and it sat there for nearly 10 years. And that is the last book that I absolutely had to write. I was not going to give up until that book was done and it was published. So now that book is done. There might be another book that pops up that I absolutely have to write in a year or two, and I'll get that done. But right now, it took a long time. It took patience. It was, believe me, when I lost my book contract in 2016, I don't mind saying that the publishing industry kicked the living shit out of me. And I sat down for 5 years, and then I got back up. And there's no such thing as failure as long as you get back up after you've been knocked down. I don't care if it takes a day, an hour, 10 years. But you have to get back up, figure out what it is you want to do to make yourself happy and just do it. If it is going to Marrakesh and learning how to dance, that's great. Like if it is India and you want to learn how to make a curry, that's great. Don't expect to find yourself in some place where you've never been. You're in yourself 100% of the time.
Yeah.
So if you don't know yourself, who does? It's just like figuring it out. You know yourself. Figure it out. What holes haven't been filled in your life that you really wish were filled? What was on the list that you wanted to check off that you never got to check off for this reason or that reason? Go back to that list and check those things off. And right now is the perfect time to do it. You need distractions.
It's true.
You need to focus on yourself. You need to do a paint by numbers. My mom does diamond dots, whatever. Like,
Do something.
yeah, I'm going to go back to painting. I'm a terrible painter. I am a horrible, horrible painter. But I'm going to paint my dog this weekend. Not
Done.
literally, but like on a canvas.
Yes, I love it. Well, okay, since we're getting to know each other a little bit better, I want to get to know you aside from what I can find on the internet. And so I'm going to ask you a question. And
Sure.
that is, what are 3 things that you carry in your bag with you? And what's the story behind them?
Where's my purse? Oh my God. Well, it's always lipstick. It is this lipstick. Which is this one's lipstick, and they've stopped making it. So I've had to buy everything that I can possibly find on the internet. Altoids. I always carry Altoids because I'm afraid that I have bad breath. I never have a pen on me. I don't know why I don't have a pen on me. I never have a pen on me because a writer needs to have a pen on them. And one other thing, there's probably some errant candy. Like Junior Mints, they F me up a lot. Junior Mints after the movies, they spread around and they get stuck to things. And then I pull out a credit card that's got like a bunch of Junior Mints on it.
Because you could never close that box back up.
No, and they melt. They totally melt all over. And if you don't eat them all in one shot, one time I was at my mom's house visiting and I stuck my hand in no, I'm sorry. I was on the couch and she said, I found this in the couch. She's like, I found your pills on the couch. And they were these capsules that were pink and white. And I was like, oh, and I took them from her. I threw them in my mouth and I chewed them. She's like, oh my God, that's disgusting. But they were good and Plenty's. And they had fallen out of my purse into our couch. And I knew where they came from because I love Good and Plenty's, right? So, so there's always usually some sticky rogue candy. My husband he won't even put his hand in my purse. He won't even do it.
Doesn't know what he's going to find when he pulls it out.
No. Could be an arm. Who knows?
Well, lately, given what you're writing about, could be an arm.
Arm and Ruth's purse, yeah.
Yes.
That's very, very true. Yeah.
Well, Laurie, I just want to say thank you so much. This has been such a delightful conversation, and you've been so
glad,
much
Holly.
fun.
I'm so glad. I really was afraid that I had scared you.
No, I was not afraid at all. So that's great. But before we go, what do you have going on next? Like, where can we find you? What is next for Laurie?
Well, I'm not sure when you're going to post this, but on November 16th, I'm having a party online. So we're going to talk about Murderess.
Okay.
And then we're going to do that a little bit. And then I'm taking requests for old pieces that people want me to read. So it's going to be a reading and a party just so we can get some levity into this next week or so. And then I'm starting on another book. I'm working on the podcast right now for The Murderess because I had so much material and so many other experts to talk to that I couldn't fit it into the book. So I talked to Phoenix Police. I talked to the historian of Arizona, like the guy who saved the murder house and restored it. I mean, grisly things happened there.
Yes.
He bought the house and he restored it. And it is a historic landmark in Phoenix, not officially, but so that's the next thing. And then I'm going to start working on another humor book about more adventures in middle age, but my parents are aging and it's kind of balancing that. Like I'm at the point where, not to be maudlin or morbid, but that I really need to appreciate the time I have with my parents, no matter what rotten food they eat or crazy things they say. Like, you talk too much, or I'm so glad you weren't a twin. They do say things like that to me. So it's about that and dealing with more old age stuff. Yeah, just I've also almost been banned from every single pharmacy in town because they're inept and it makes me mad. And And I don't like waiting in line for a half an hour and you don't have my prescription when you just texted me this morning and told me that you did. Yeah, I might lose my shit over that.
I don't understand that part, but I know exactly what you're talking about. If you text me and say that it's ready, I'm expecting when I get there that it's ready. But
Yeah.
I'm certainly going to look forward to that because I love your writing and yeah,
Thank you, Holly.
thank you so much for being here today.
So it's my pleasure. Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. You're so brave. You're so brave. I like you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us on Real Wisdom. If you're inspired by stories like this and want to be part of a community that celebrates the wisdom of women, visit joinempart.com and become a part of our conversation. And don't forget to subscribe for even more real wisdom. Until next time, keep embracing your story.